Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is actually an all Ontario collaboration, and out of the two breweries involved in this one, it's only the home brewery that's featured on the channel before, and my first and only review thus far from them came a couple of weeks ago and I was very impressed with that beer. But the other brewery have a very good reputation as well, and both of these breweries are relatively new additions to the local beer scenes, and from what I gather it is probably fair to say that they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one that has been brewed by both breweries individually. I think the different beers have different ABVs if I'm not mistaken. But this one is a little bit stronger. It's a style that I very much enjoy, so needless to say I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us, and it's always nice to introduce new Canadian breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews as well. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head to a little place called Glen Robertson in Ontario, which is just to the southeast of Ottawa and also out to the west of Montreal, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Wood Brothers Brewery. So this particular beer is called Triple Bone Tree. It comes in at 9% ABV, and from what I gather this one is a New England hazy triple IPA. But this is brewed in collaboration with Third Moon Brewing Company, who are featuring on the channel for the first time, and they are from Milton in Ontario, which is just to the west of Toronto and Mississauga, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Hopefully I am. But yeah, first encounter with them. Like I say, both of these breweries are very well known for their New England hazy IPAs, and it's definitely cool to be able to review some Canadian stuff for you on the channel more regularly. There are of course a number of very good Canadian beer tubers there these days. You know, Redbeard is one of the newer guys who I watch quite regularly, and then you've also got Lee Russell, who is one of the more old school guys. He's actually one of the really OG beer YouTubers from what I remember. So yeah, go and check both of those guys out. Lee Russell's a funny guy, I like him a lot, and Kerry from Redbeard is nice as well. So yeah, go and check out their channels. But like I say, there are many Canadian beer tubers out there, so go show them some love. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it has in store for us. As always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved in this one before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Wood Brothers Brewing Company, and to my future reviews that I'll do from Third Moon Brewing Company. Very first time we're trying a beer involving them, as I said, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to quite regularly now because the Canadian beers seem to make their way over here in a steady stream to Hong Kong. But yeah, make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some really interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about the breweries. We'll start with Wood Brothers, of course, since they are the home brewery in this case, and I should point out as well that the Third Moon version of this beer just has the Third Moon symbol up here instead of the Wood Brothers one. Actually, that's just the only difference you can see between these beers. But like I say, the one, when I looked on Untappd earlier, the Third Moon one seemed to have a 10.5% ABV listed. So yeah, there might well be differences in the beer beyond that. But yeah, anyway, to tell you a little bit about Wood Brothers Brewing Company then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Wood Brothers Brewing Company are based in Glen Robertson in Ontario, which is to the southeast of Ottawa, the Canadian capital, and to the west of Montreal, which is actually closer. So the project started back in 2017, but the company opened its doors in 2019, and the main people behind this company are Mark and Natasha Ricard. Louis Castel Gladstone guy, Dan Whitehead, and also Kurt McSwain. So Mark and Natasha are serial entrepreneurs, and they own the White Pine Lumber Company, which does furniture and various different wood services actually, and Mark also has his own design company. But Kurt is a farmer and runs a company called Dalgara Farms, and his family have been on their land in North Glengarry for at least 4 generations, and they're now producing hops for use in the Wood Brothers beers. But Dan and Lewis actually worked as brewers and were involved at La Brosse Brewery in Pontclair in Montreal, and they've also got their own brand of beer which is called Gravedigging Bros. I'm not sure how many beers they've released in that brand, but the Instagrams are quite interesting actually. But all of the founders apparently kept their day jobs when they started the company, and this was started as a side venture, but it has been pretty damn successful. But prior to the official opening, they'd apparently brewed around 150 batches to perfect a number of recipes, and this brewery is actually located on a 65-acre farm, and they tapped their first keg in spring of 2019. But over the years they've been building up the brewery infrastructure, which included a new brew house which was put in 2020, and they've apparently tripled in size in terms of their brewing capacity since foundation. But they've got a tap room at the brewery as well, which opens on Friday and Saturdays, and as of April 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 480 different beers according to Untappd. So yeah, like I say, they've built up a very good reputation for themselves in terms of their New England hazies. That's where their main focus seems to be, but they're doing a number of kind of more modern sour beers and things like that as well, from what I understand. So a really interesting brewery, and one that's definitely worth checking out if you find yourself in Canada, in Ontario. So yeah, let's leave it at that for Wood Brothers Brewing Company. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the brewery let's go on to the away brewery in this case then. So yeah, Third Moon Brewing Company, who are the new one to the channel. So, like I mentioned to you earlier, Third Moon Brewing Company are based in Milton in Ontario, which is just out to the west of Toronto and Mississauga. But the company was founded by Steve Bibo Pilotto and Chris Steininger. So Bibo is originally from Chicago, but he moved to Montreal to study and then on to Ontario shortly after graduating. But he studied communications and finance and worked in investment and trade for a number of years, whereas Chris originally studied maths and computing science, and he comes from a background in IT and product management. But the guys were just big beer enthusiasts, and apparently they met through a mutual friend's Untappd meetup, and they sat opposite each other just by chance, and they just nerded out on beer apparently more than anyone else in the meet did. But this was where their friendship was born. But they both spent a lot of time trying to find beers from different breweries across the world, and Bibo was already an avid home brewer, and then you know, Chris kind of got involved in this as well, and they just started seriously talking about opening their own brewery, and they say that they just want to brew the kinds of beer they wanted to drink themselves. But the plan to open up the brewery was announced in summer of 2019, and they opened in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So since their foundation, they've added Jim Fay and Cole Firth to the brewing team, while Melissa Steininger has also come in, and she takes care of like operations and maintenance and stuff like that. She comes from a building background apparently. But once the COVID restrictions were lifted, they opened up the tap room at the brewery, and they've been gradually upgrading the fermentation capacity of the brewery over the last few years. But as of April 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 375 different beers according to Untappd. And like I said to you, these guys are probably best known for the different New England hazies, but apparently they also do some very good sour beers, kind of modern fruity juicy smoothie type sour beers, and also some big pastry stouts and stuff like that as well. So yeah, the way this brewery sounds, I think we need to try and get some more beers from these guys at some point in the near future. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about this brewery for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that they've done. And you can, of course, for both of these breweries, check out my Canadian beer tubing colleagues, who probably, no doubt, review these beers a little bit more regularly than I do. But yeah, that's everything about the brewery histories. Let's go on and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So This one I think should be really quite interesting. I have had this beer, I think maybe about a month or something like that, if I remember correctly. It says on the bottom of the can here it was canned on the 25th of the 1st, 2024, so it's, you know, it's about 3 months old. Yeah, 3 months old at this point actually. So yeah, it should still be in pretty good condition, and that's not too bad for an import beer. This is one I had been waiting to kind of put the notes together for both Wood Brothers and Third Moon Brewing Company, but we finally managed to do that. But you can see the artwork on this one is really nice. So you can see there's the triple Bone Tree. Bone Tree, I believe, is one of the beers from Third Moon, if I'm not mistaken. One of their kind of core IPAs. I think it was, they released a special version of that for their 2nd anniversary in the articles that I read. But you can see plain silver top on the can there. This one is a 473 milliliter can. Like I said to you, this one is a 9% triple IPA, this one. And you can see on the side here, there is the Third Moon Brewing Company symbol. So yeah, it looks pretty nice actually. Yeah, 473 milliliter can, this one, triple Bone Tree, 9%. Let's just get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. I'm curious to see whether this one is more of a hazy or if it's more of a kind of West Coasty or just American type IPA. So we'll just need to see. But yeah, let's have a wee look and see what this one has in store for us. Certainly looks a little bit more like an American IPA rather than being a full New England hazy, but we'll just need to see. The main question should always be, is it a good beer? But yeah, I think we've got about, you know, 75% of the beer out into the glass for the moment. So let's do this. You can see the beer poured with about a 1/3 finger of, I would say, a kind of frothy cream coloured head there. I don't know if that's perfect white, but there you can see, if I bring it up to the glass, up to the camera there, you can see kind of medium-sized bubbles on the surface. Then it gets a little bit more bubbly the further up that you go, and a little bit more foamy as well. But yeah, this one looks pretty damn nice actually, quite bright in its colour. So to me, the colour of this one, I would describe it as being a very kind of rich, mixed tropical fruit juice actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPA, of course. So yeah, I do like how this one appears actually. It looks pretty damn good. But in terms of the level of haze in this one, yeah, I think now that it's settled a wee bit and it's poured, you can see, I think this probably is more of a New England hazy rather than just a, you know, an American IPA. When I talk about American IPA, I usually mean it's somewhere between, you know, the West Coast, pretty much all barley malt base, and the New England oat, wheat and barley malt base. But I think this one is going to be more New England hazy, and you know, from what I hear about these breweries, that is what they're known for. But it looks very good, this one. The level of haze in this one for a 9%er is probably about what you expect. There's 1 or 2 bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, and a few of them going up toward the surface, but it looks pretty nice actually. So yeah, other than that, I don't think there's anything really to say about the appearance of this one. So yeah, let's take a little look at the aroma then and see what this beer has in store for us. Oh yeah, that smells pretty damn good actually. Kind of gives you everything you'd expect from the style, to be honest with you. You've got a lovely big breadiness, bright green component in there, juicy fruits, and you do get that little bit of booziness because, well, it is 9% ABV. So yeah, I have to admit with this one, with it being only 9% ABV, I might debate the fact that it's a triple IPA. I would always say triples start at like 10% ABV, but that's just me. So I would call this, it's one of the stronger doubles in a sense actually. But yeah, the aroma of this one is pretty damn good. So yeah, I'm just seeing the level of haze on this one is kind of settling up a wee bit now. Remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. But yeah, it looks great, this one. But let's break the aroma down and just describe that a little bit more in depth for you. So the backbone of this beer is, of course, a lovely kind of fresh, white bready hedgehog roll bread crust. There's a little bit of woodiness in there. There's a little bit of cracker and things like that as well. So yeah, a wee bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker. And on top of that, there's a little bit of kind of brown bread, I would say, like a fluffy brown bread. I think there's quite a lot of white bread to this one, obviously, as well. And in the back of the nose, pardon me, I don't know what I took in there, must have been a bit of dust. In the back of the nose, you do get a little bit of that wheaty, bitey character coming out of this one. So, yeah, it does smell quite interesting and bitey, but I'm getting a little bit of the kind of smoothness out of the wheat. So definitely North American wheat in this one. As I've explained before, North American wheat for me is a good little bit smoother than European wheat, which is a little bit drier and more bitey, I would say. But yeah, definitely a mix of like brown bread in there, quite a bit of cracker and woodiness coming out of this beer. You get that, I think, from the yeastiness in the back of the nose too. Good little bit of denser wheaty white bready note, and also a bit of a more bitey character as well. Some creamy oats in there, and as I've mentioned before, the oaty character in New England IPAs is usually a good indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the creamier the oats smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. This one still actually smells pretty fresh, but you are starting to get a little bit of dryness out of the oaty character, which is understandable when it's 3 months old. But yeah, still quite a lot of creaminess in there for me. Good little bit of like Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch coming out of this one. So yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, I think we've said everything we really need to about the malt base in this one. It comes across as being a little bit more wheaty leaning, a bit more barley malt bready, and a wee bit more kind of oaty creamy. It's actually quite well balanced. As I've said before, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to New England IPAs, and for me that's the kind of yeasty, farmhousey character, the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, some of the OGs like Alchemist and so on, but then you've got the wheaty bitiness, barley malt bread, the oaty creaminess, and the sweeter side of things, and that's very much, I think, how the style has evolved from back in the early days. But yeah, let's talk about the hoppy side of this beer then. So as I've mentioned on the channel many times before, there are 3 types of hoppings you can do in your IPAs. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place usually within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you a lot of, it gives you a very kind of deep, dank flavour and aroma. And it is mostly responsible for your bitterness. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a little bit of bitterness, but also some kind of flavour and but mostly flavour and aroma. And it gives you a very bright green component in terms of flavour and aroma as well. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that is all about flavour and aroma, and that gives you 0 bitterness, but again, very bright notes out of that. So West Coast IPAs use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they're deeper and danker and more bitter. New England IPAs rely more on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and juicier. But yeah, with this beer, it's quite obvious, you know, it's relying on late addition and dry hopping. The green component in this one is quite bright, but it's still quite soft as well, actually. And some of the notes I'm getting out of this one make me wonder if there's cryo involved in this, actually, because it has a little bit of that oily character to it. But yeah, there's a little touch of earthiness in this one. I get a little bit of herbal character, but certainly quite a lot of floral aromaticity and quite a lot of grassiness as well. It's kind of a wet, freshly cut grass that I get out of this beer. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is it's really quite nice, actually. So gets a thumbs up from me on the green component. The fruity character is very interesting in this one because it comes across as being very sort of soft, but it's also very familiar, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, I don't think it's going to be Idaho 7, to be honest with you, but it really has a lot of that type of character to it. But Citra, I think the Third Moon version of this beer had Citra, and that would kind of make sense in a way, because you get a little bit of that sharper, juicy peach, a lot of passion fruit, a lot of mango in this one. But at the same time, when I sugar the beer up, I only get like a little bit of that kind of lemony, limey character that you can often get from the Citra, but I think we'll be able to tell a wee bit more in the flavour of the beer. But yeah, a little bit of peach, passion fruit, mango, apricot, bit of pineapple, and then yeah, there's a wee bit of, 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 a wee bit of yeah, there's a little bit of, you do get a wee bit of that kind of gooseberry lychee sort of thing, but a wee bit of lemon lime as well. So yeah, the way everything goes together in this beer, I think the aroma is very, very nice. So as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So there you go. Perfect pour there, look at that. Just a little touch of sediment coming in there. You can see the beer has got hazy just as I've poured the end. So this one has been in the fridge for, yeah, a couple of weeks while I got time to do the notes for this one. But yeah, let's taste this then. This one is the Triple Bone Tree, a 9% Imperial IPA from Wood Brothers Brewing Company in Glen, Robertson, Ontario, in collaboration with Third Moon Brewing from Milton in Ontario. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, pretty damn good. I mean, Wood Brothers, a lot of people were raving about Wood Brothers when they came into Hong Kong. A lot of the beer geeks were like, oh, wow, like amazing. And then I tried one of their beers and it was great. Tried a couple actually, but I only reviewed one on the channel. But yeah, this is pretty damn good as well. When Wood Brothers are involved, I'm not surprised, but I've heard Third Moon are just as good actually. I actually saw a couple of their beers had made it to Kiosk in Copenhagen, which I used to frequent obviously. So yeah, the way this one goes together is really nice. So big thumbs up to both breweries involved in this one. It's actually very smooth, very, you know, very creamy and quite bready. New England triple, this one, so I like it a lot. And it's very juicy as well. So yeah, the way everything goes together in this beer, I think is very, very nice. So yeah, let's break this beer down then and describe it more in depth. I will say you get a bit more oaty character out of this one the further you go into the aftertaste too. But yeah, let's go to the middle third of the palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh, white bready, hedgehog bread crusty character coming out of this one. And again, I really, really like that in this beer. But if you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of woodiness in there. So you get a little touch of woodiness. Then above that, you've got a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker type character as well. So yeah, but the breadiness in this beer really, really builds the more that you drink of it. I think that's absolutely fair to say. So yeah, on top of the kind of crackery layer, you can feel there is a very slight layer of a more grainy, wholemeal, brown bready character coming out of this one. But then yeah, on top of that you can feel the fluffy barley malt white bread coming out of it. So yeah, lovely kind of barley malt white bread coming out of this one. And it's actually quite dense. The bready character in this beer really is quite dense and very smooth. But then above that barley malt white bready layer, you can feel that there is yeah, you can certainly feel that there is a little bit of you can feel the wheaty character coming out of this one. And the wheaty layer is quite interesting because at the back of that middle third of your palate, you've got a more kind of bitey character coming out of the beer. But then yeah, as you move further forward, it's got a little bit more sort of smoothness and things like that to it. But yeah, the way that that goes together, I think is really very, very nice. Yeah, the smoothness of that, the wheaty bitiness, the smoothness of the malty character, and the smoothness of the wheat in there as well is another feature of this beer that's really quite interesting. So yeah, the thickness of the bread and the sort of creaminess that the malt base has is pretty nice. So yeah, On top of that wheaty layer though, you start to get the oaty side of this beer, and the oatiness for me is actually still quite creamy at this point. So if you go down the middle line of your palate, you can feel there's the big creamy oaty note in there, and as you move out toward the edges of your palate, you can feel it's just that little bit lighter. You know, it's just a little bit lighter, but you also get a wee bit more dryness out of the oats. And then in the dead centre of your palate, it's quite interesting because you can feel there's a sort of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of note out of the beer. And as you move a wee bit out from that, there's almost this kind of slightly Skittles type flavour, which comes from one of the New England yeasts, from one of the quite common ones. I forget which one it is. But yeah, you can feel that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, which is the booze out of the beer. Then it's got a wee bit of a more, kind of Skittles type character coming out of it too, and that sort of lingers into the aftertaste as well. But I think that covers the middle third of your palate at this point. So yeah, on the back third of your palate, and as I've said before, you know, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, but the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So anyway, the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you've got a little bit of brown bread in the base, white bread in the middle, and then a wee bit of wheat on top, the wee bit of wheaty bitiness there. But then yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, it's the kind of bread crusty base that's in there. The kind of cracker is there as well, and those layers feel just that little bit drier. You've got the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy as well, just feels that little bit taller. Then you've got the white bready layer in there, which feels really light and tall and more airy. And then above that, you have the wheaty layer there, and you can feel the nice bitiness of the wheat just kind of lingering there and sitting on top of all that malty layer. But of course, the focus of the back third of the palate for me is the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a little look at those yeasty characteristics now then. So yeah, the back third of the palate, for me, the yeasty side of things, you can feel that really dense, sweet, white bready character in there. So yeah, dense, sweet, white bready character in there. Around that, you've got a more kind of rusticy, crusty white bread almost, a little bit farmhousey, and then you've got the, then yeah, you do have that little bit of, I would say, just like a kind of crackery bread crust around the edge of that. So yeah, the yeasty character in this beer is actually quite sweet, but it gives you a little bit of dryness into the aftertaste. And I do find this beer is giving you more and more dryness in the malty character into the aftertaste. But yeah, definitely, back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's start with the green component. In the back corners of the palate, there is a little bit of earthiness there, which makes me wonder, is there a wee bit of mosaic in here? Could it be Citron mosaic or Simcoe mosaic or something that's in this one? But yeah, little bit of earthiness for sure, wee bit of herbal character, and as you push further forward along the sides of your palate, you definitely get a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity coming out of this one. So yeah, nice kind of floral aromaticity in there, and then you get a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy, zesty kind of character coming out of this beer too, which is great. So yeah, the green component in this one, I'm not convinced what I said earlier about there being cryo in this is right now, because it does have a wee bit of kind of bite to it. Whereas yeah, normally you'd expect these things to be a little bit more kind of oily, to be honest with you, if it was cryo. But yeah, the green component is nice anyway, and it sort of balances out the rest of the beer. But let's look at the front third of the palate then, and the sort of fruity side of the beer. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of that nice bready build up in there. Wee bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then you've got a wee bit more of, you do have a little bit more of a kind of wheaty bitiness on top, but quite smooth in this point. But the base of that front third of your palate is the base of that front 30 palate, yeah, it's the bread crust, the cracker, those are quite smooth actually at this point. And I don't really get so much brown bread, but yeah, white bread and then the smoother wheaty character. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters kind of roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the way all of that goes together I think is really nice in this one. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is pretty nice. At the back of that, yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a nice wee bit of, at the back of that, you certainly get a little bit of the oily bubble. You get a wee bit of that sharper peach. I'm pretty sure Citra in this, to be quite honest with you. So there's a little bit of that kind of sharper peach. And as you move further forward, there's definitely passion fruit in there, but quite a lot of, you know, ripe, juicy mango. It's the combination of the peach and the mango that can gets me thinking that it's Citra for sure. But yeah, as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a wee bit of like apricot in the base, a bit of pineapple on top. But I do think there's a wee bit of a kind of orangey character, like a bit more of a juicy orangey character out of this one. The further you go into the further forward you go. So yeah, a wee bit of a kind of oily orangey character for sure. So yeah, big kind of oily orangey juicy character in there. Peachy notes. Yeah, peachy notes, a sort of, the peach kind of lingers there for me, and then the really ripe juicy mango, and yeah, just that kind of orangey note into the aftertaste. I think it's more tropical in the beginning, and then it kind of moves a little bit more towards an orangey juicy character the further into it that you go. But all in all, it's a really, really nice beer, this one actually, and for 3 months old, it's held up pretty well actually. So yeah, the more that I drink of it, the more kind of bready and dry and oaty it gets actually. So it's quite interesting, this. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful beer, this one, and I think both breweries have done a very good job with it. I would just be curious to try the Third Moon one, which was slightly stronger, and see what that's like. But yeah, I think we can round off the review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, mouthfeel wise, this beer is quite for me, this beer, I would say bottom end full bodied. Carbonation is quite smooth in this one. This beer has a bit of creaminess to it, but it's also quite oily and slick in a way. The IBU count, I think, does show you a bit more bitterness into the aftertaste. I want to say the IBU count is maybe about 50 with this one, but it could just be 40. I don't think it's as low as 30. I think it's 40 or 50 in this case. 50 wouldn't surprise me. The malt, as we said, is a bit dry underneath, smooth in the middle, and a bit bitey and slightly creamy on top. But yeah, you get more and more dryness out of the malty and yeasty side of this beer the further into the aftertaste that you go. But then yeah, you've got all of the juicy fruity characters coming out of this one. It's got a little bit of sharpness in the beginning, but it mellows out really, really nicely into the aftertaste, and you get a wee bit of that more oily orangey character as well. So yeah, the way everything pieces together in this beer, I think, is really nice, and it's a solid New England double for me. As I say, at 9%, I don't know if it quite makes the grade a triple, but yeah, the question should always be, is it a good beer? And definitely is the case. So yeah, I think this one, they should put it up to 10%, and then they can mark it as a triple, but as it stands, very, very good beer, this one. So let's leave it at that for this. This has been really interesting to review, and certainly cool to introduce Third Moon Brewing on the channel too. So yeah, this was the Triple Bone Tree, the Wood Brothers Brewing Company version, in collaboration with Third Moon Brewing, both of these breweries from Ontario in Canada. Really, really nice beer, this one, and it certainly makes me want to try more stuff from both breweries. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Wood Brothers and Third Moon as well, and we will see about returning to these guys at some point in the near future. I do hope we see some Third Moon stuff over here, because they are supposed to be very good. Until the next time, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, check out my Canadian beer tubing friends as well, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you later.